Hi, it's Neil Waterhouse. Received a question from Greg Adams asking what types of payment methods should they accept on eBay and on their own independent website. A great question, Greg, by the way. Now, there's so many different payment methods available today for taking payment for your eBay business and your own independent website. For Amazon of course has its own gateway, so you don't need to worry about different payment methods for that platform. For an eBay business or your own independent website, you've got many options including PayPal, credit cards like Visa, MasterCard, American Express, etc. as well as other methods of receiving funds including direct deposits where buyers transfer funds into your bank account. You can also, if you wish, accept personal and bank checks. This of course is where customers post in checks to whatever nominated address you put, which is normally either your personal address, your business address, or a post office box. Now, the short answer to Greg's question is most definitely accept PayPal, and if you only have an eBay business, I highly recommend you only accept PayPal and nothing else. The reason for this is every payment method has its pros and cons, and PayPal these days simply has the most pros for buyers and sellers. PayPal these days has the best screening of both buyers and sellers, meaning it's very rare these days to get a chargeback. Now, for those who don't know what a chargeback is, a chargeback of course occurs when a buyer disputes a charge on their credit card statement. In other words, the buyer states that somebody else fraudulently used their credit card to purchase goods and they are requesting the bank to reverse the charge. PayPal these days eradicates most chargebacks as they use a lot of fraud prevention techniques including tracking of IP addresses of computers, phones, tablets or any other device used to purchase an item. This, plus a multitude of other screening and vetting algorithms, has made PayPal a very safe gateway, again for both buyers and sellers. This, by the way, is another thing to be extremely grateful these days. As never before on online businesses has it been so safe for buyers and sellers. Now, back what must have been over 20 years ago now, I learnt this lesson the hard way. I sold a stack of computer memory sims, and for my payment we were given credit card details. Now, back in those days, we took the credit card details, wrote them on credit card slips, which the bank provided. You remember those white slips, and they had carbon in between, and you wrote them through, and then you gave the yellow one to your customer, and the white one you kept, and you put that in a bag, and you sent it with your banking. So we wrote on one of those slips. And then we used to ring up the bank, give the bank the credit card numbers and the amount, and then the bank would give us an approval number, which we subsequently wrote on that number on the slip. Then once we got that approval number, we shipped the items out. Well, of course this was all going great until one day we received two letters from our bank, and then these two letters were two transactions in which the owner of the credit cards were disputing the transaction, saying they never ordered the items. Now, one of these orders was for just over $5,000 and the other one was for over $15,000. That lesson cost me over $20,000. Now, the bank asked us to provide evidence that the two customers had actually ordered these sims, or these items. We provided all the documentation that we had been provided by the customer, and sent it to the bank. Then approximately 1 or 2 weeks went past and we received two more letters from the bank saying that the evidence wasn't good enough as there was no signature from the owner of the credit card. And because there's no signature, the bank debited the 20 grand from our account, and to add insult to the injury, they hit us with a $30 chargeback fee for each transaction. So my big expensive lesson back then was no signature equals no responsibility from the bank, and all responsibility on the seller. Since that day, we never ship any items out which are worth more than $100 to a customer who uses a credit card without first verifying the address of the buyer. So for that reason, if you're a newbie or just selling on eBay, I highly recommend just use PayPal until you have a methodology in place to verify addresses. Now, the next payment method I'll mention is direct deposits. This is where a customer purchases something from you and they pay you by transferring money into your bank account. To make the payment, the customer can either walk into a bank or they can transfer cash or check into an account and then go online and transfer from their account into your bank account. Now, this can all work well when you're small, but once you get bigger, it can turn into an absolute accounting nightmare. We have one product and some days it's sold over 20 times in the one day, and always for exactly the same price. Now, the problem here is when people deposit cash into your bank account and don't give any reference to the payment, that's where the problem is. Anyway, anyone who's run an eBay, Amazon or website business long enough knows that customers don't always pay as soon as they purchase, so there's always unpaid items in the system. What happens here is if you're accepting bank deposits, you have to try to continuously match the payments in your bank account with the unpaid orders. Of course, when somebody deposits cash in your bank account, and it just says cash deposit, and there's no reference to who it was or what they purchased, it's impossible to figure out, which order it goes to. Continuously, we'll get payments in our bank account. They just say cash deposit. Now, the problem here is we just have to wait until the customer complains they didn't receive the order. And of course, this causes further problems because as soon as we ask the buyer to prove that they paid, so we request a deposit slip or something, they get annoyed and just say, oh, check your bank account. I think many buyers think that they're the only customer that we have, but in reality, that item could have sold over multiple times in one day. So to get around this as much as possible, if you do accept direct deposits, always have plenty of follow-up emails continuously stating to the customer that they must put a reference down on the deposit. Otherwise, we cannot match their payment and their delivery could be delayed if we cannot match that payment with their order. What we discovered is that statement of their order could be delayed if we cannot match their payment works the best so far to reduce the amount of people not putting any reference on the direct deposits and also not notifying us when they made a deposit. If the customer thinks their order will be delayed by not giving the details, they're much more likely to make the effort to either put a reference on the deposit and or notify us when they've done a direct deposit. Now, what's the next one? The next payment method I'll mention is accepting checks by post. The problem with accepting checks is if there are personal checks, you obviously don't want to ship the item until the personal check clears and the money's in your account. And this can take 3 days to over 1 week for the check to clear. On top of that time is the time it takes for the check to finally arrive in your post box or your letter box. Then how often do you clear your PO box? Then how often do you go to the bank so you can deposit the check? All these timeframes, they add up, and suddenly it can be 2 weeks from the time when the customer purchased the item to the time the money's clear in your bank account. Hello, Fergie. It's one of your cows wanting some lunch. Anyway, so Fergie, you lost my train of thought. So now it's 2 weeks. So if it's an import item that you had in stock, do you still have the item in stock? If it's a dropship item, does your supplier still have the item in stock? So bottom line is, PayPal rocks for both eBay and your own independent website, and other payments, they're okay as long as you know and understand the pitfalls, and then have the methodologies in place to help overcome chargebacks. Of course, it's all much easier to take multiple payment methods once you're at the stage of employing low-cost overseas virtual staff who can do it for you. But if you're not at that stage yet, remember it's all just continuous small baby steps, and you'll be there before you know it. That's all for this week. Please scroll down below and leave me a comment. Until next week, list more, sell more. This is Neil Waterhouse.